Dylan White against Lucas Brown. Press conference, no sort of fireworks as such, but quite tetchy and a few controversial things said. It looks like it's really sort of simmering between the two. Obviously, don't like each other.
Yeah, there's you see a lot of fights with bad blood, and I think generally the main aim for us is to make sure that we get through it without any rolling around, because they all have a code of conduct to follow, and the British Boxing Board will say to me before events like this, we know you're selling the fight, but please get them to behave themselves. They're both told, and they did, face to face. There's a few controversial things said, but ultimately it's been brewing between these guys for probably 6 months, and there's a lot of bad blood, and yes, that'll help for the promotion of the show, but ultimately it's a really good fight and a very important fight in the division, and probably outside of the World Championship fights, I would say this is the biggest fight in the division. So March 24th at the O2, it's going to be a very interesting event.
It was sort of all reasonably light-hearted and jokey between the pair until Dylan brought up his racist sort of, that he had been upset that he called him an orangutan or likened him to an orangutan because of his long arms. Which obviously not what you kind of want to hear a fight like surrounding a fight of this magnitude.
Not really. There's a lot of things you don't want to hear, but ultimately, let's not kid ourselves. It's a fight, and you can't always expect these guys to behave in a normal way because they're not normal. Fighting's not normal. This sport is not normal. You can't. Let's break this down. You're goading someone on social media for 6 months, and then you're asked to sit next to that person at a table. Then you're asked to look him in the eye for a face-off for a minute, and then you're asked to go in front of the O2 Arena in front of 10,000 people and fight him for the public. This is not normal. So sometimes you have to understand you can't expect these guys to behave normally. And when there's bad blood and there is animosity, things are going to get said. It wasn't like sort of thug stuff, was it? It wasn't like, I'm going to do this. It was just things that have happened and things that have been said, and almost like an analysis of those.
Yeah. But Lucas Brown said, "Look, I'm not racist. It wasn't racist at all. I was just saying because you've got long arms." Yeah. Do you believe and do you think that was? He's obviously deleted it, and he's.
I think he has. I think his wife, as he said, he says his wife's half Jamaican. Yeah. So listen. I mean, at the end of the day, do I believe that Lucas Brown is racist? No, I don't. I mean, do I believe he says some stupid things? Yes, of course. As does Dillian White. But I'm not really bothered about that. I'm bothered about building a great fight and great event, and I'm more bothered about seeing Dillian White in a proper fight against someone that wants to knock him out. Because I think for a while now, Dillian White has been sort of jumping on the coattails of Anthony Joshua on these pay-per-view cards in great fights. Chisora was a great example. Now's the time and the opportunity for him to come out of that mode and be his own star. And he is, he's number one in the WBC. He's a big star in British boxing. And I think that in a fight like this, he gets the opportunity to show what he's capable of doing. And it's going to be very exciting.
Obviously, the other issue as well that was brought up a lot in the press conference was drug testing or failing drug tests, which they both have. Dylan says, well, you're addicted to it. You can't live without it. Dylan's on the whereabouts UCAD testing. I assume Lucas Brown's not on it.
He's on VADA, worldwide random testing. So it's same system, effectively, and he'll be on a whereabouts system as well. Okay. So both fighters, when you sign up, when you're in the WBC rankings, to stay in there, you have to sign up to the random testing program, which both fighters.
Is that as extensive as the UCAD daily whereabouts?
It's pretty much the same. It's still the whereabouts is part of the testing process that essentially tells the testing system where you are, and exactly the same thing is on the VADA WBC testing. So you have to, you can't go on holiday for 2 weeks and then they turn up everywhere. There'll also be UCAD testing for this fight as well. They have the opportunity, whilst Lucas Brown is here for 5 days, to test him here. Okay. He's fighting here. He will be tested when he arrives in the UK. He'll be tested after the fight as well. So I think that what we're seeing now from the governing bodies is them really stepping up their game on the testing processes, because both the WBC and the WBA now have random VADA testing. And the only way you're going to catch these people really is through random testing, because it's certainly not as developed and extensive as cheating in cycling, but some of these fighters are dealing with doctors who will know how to cheat a system, and random testing is the only way to eradicate it out of the sport. People talking about, do you think these fighters should be banned? I think if a fighter is knowingly taking drugs to cheat in the sport of boxing, 100% they should be banned. Yes, and the issue is it's not my decision. That's a decision made by board of directors, governing bodies, local commissions, British Boxing Board of Control. But how many have been unlucky and how many have taken a supplement they shouldn't have? I believe quite a few of them, but also quite a few of them have probably knowingly cheated as well. But how do you know? Like you said, Dillian White previously had a pre-workout drink that had something many years ago, got banned. I believe that was completely innocent, but someone else might not believe that. So it's very difficult. All we can do is leave it in the hands of the governing bodies and the commissions to make their decisions and rule. Ultimately, he's been ruled that he's served his ban. He's in the governing body. He's an important fighter in the division. Alexander Povetkin's another example. He will eventually be Anthony Joshua's mandatory. He's failed a test multiple times, but he's cleared by his commission. He's cleared by the WBA. So what do we do? Say, oh no, we're not fighting him, and we'll get stripped. So it has to be in the hands of the people who are capable of making the decisions. And ultimately, I feel like those people need to be the testing bodies rather than the governing bodies, because, and that's very similar with the British Boxing Board of Control. The British Boxing Board of Control will not rule on a failed test. UCAD will, and UCAD will appoint the ban. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I feel VADA have to do, perhaps more strongly, because ultimately a governing body, once a ban is served, it's very difficult for that governing body to say you're out. So, but I do feel like where we are.
Do you feel like maybe if you get done twice, or certainly 3 times, then even the governing body should say,
yeah, possibly, it depends. There's so many variations, isn't there, of what you can fail a test for. One might be, look at Luis Ortiz. He failed it for a supplement that lowers blood pressure, but could also be a masking agent. And then he reports that his doctor confirms that he has high blood pressure. So who do you believe? Do you know what I mean? But fighters have to be vigilant. They have to know what they're putting in their body. And like I said, there have been occasions where fighters have taken a supplement that they thought was fine, and it wasn't, and they've been banned. Tough. It's on the list. You have a responsibility, your trainer does, your manager does, to know what's on the list and know what you're putting in your body. So,
do you think it's a developing problem or a problem that's being on the wane?
I believe it's a problem that's being solved. I do. And I think where we are now compared to 2 or 3 years ago, don't forget, 2 years ago, the governing bodies, the main problem is in America, I feel, and other countries. I feel like Britain's doing well. We have the UCAD random testing. Fighters like, Joshua was tested 6 times in the build-up to his camp. Other fighters getting tested all the time, knocks on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. But boxing in America or boxing in other countries, no testing at all, other than around the event. So on fight night, yeah. And what we do now in a lot of big fights is we will pay for additional VADA testing. So like on all Joshua fights, on the Quigg fight coming up, on the Brook fight.
Consider it for this one just because of the history between the two?
Because they're both on VADA testing and they're both on UCAD testing and WBA now as well. They're both signed up to that. So you've got the opportunity of 3 different testing processes to catch you on a 365. I just think that, listen, there will be people trying to get an edge through cheating in boxing, but you've got to be very, very careful now, because I think ultimately you're going to get caught. And I do believe they've come a long way in terms of testing of worldwide fighters in the last 2 or 3 years.